All right. Good evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get prepared to get started for tonight. First and foremost, I just want to just say welcome all of you to Living Smart, navigating your health through a pandemic. I'm so excited about tonight. This is in a virtual event being brought to you by the Omega Chi chapter of Omega Sci-Fi University, Omega Sci-Fi Fraternity. Oh Lord. We are in the process of celebrating our Achievement Week. As you can tell, it's been a long week. And so I'm excited about these conversations that we're going to be having with everyone here tonight. The first thing I would like for all of you to do, if you don't mind, just go ahead and just take a second and just be sure to share this live. And then be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just look up Omega Chi 1957. We are streaming live on Facebook, and we're streaming live on YouTube as well. And so I'm excited about tonight's event and looking forward to these great conversations that we're going to have. Now, I am going to bring forth our guest. And then as I bring them up, I will ask them to simply introduce themselves, and then, of course, who they are and what they do, and we'll go from there for the most part with our discussion. Our first guest, she is sort of doing the multitasking right now, and so I want her to go first and just allow us to introduce herself. I want to say welcome to Dr. Dede Baker. Dr. Baker, how you doing?
Hey guys, how y'all doing? It's a pleasure and honor to be before you. I am Dede Baker. I am a PGY2, so I'm a resident physician at UAB in Selma. I'm also the assistant chief for the residents and for the program there. So thank you guys so much for having me on.
Thank you so much, Dr. Baker, for being with us tonight. We certainly appreciate you. All right. So, my next guest I'm going to bring up, he is a dynamic man of God. He is an amazing individual. I'm glad to know him as a friend of mine, Pastor Courtney Meadows. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me part of this wonderful time together. While I am not a medical doctor, I do believe that I've been a part of the spiritual health of God's people. I'm senior pastor of Hutchinson Missionary Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama, and we are just grateful to be a part of tonight's discussion.
Thank you so much as well. I appreciate you taking the time to be here today. All right, next I'm going to bring up another amazing health expert, physician. She and I actually met before I started working at the Vaughn, and then of course now she left me at the Vaughn, and she's working at another amazing organization where they're doing some amazing things out there. I'm going to welcome one of my good friends that I call Dr. O. How you doing today?
Hi, thank you for having me on the show. I'm really glad to be part of it. I didn't leave you in Vaughn. I'm still here.
Listen, thank you so much for having us as well. And of course, I think you were actually on, I think, along with Dr. Baker on one of our, you were a part of our series that we did with COVID a while back. I don't know if you remember
That's
that.
right. That's correct. That's
And then,
correct.
of
With
course,
Selma City.
oh yeah, and I think you and I, we've also crossed paths. We crossed paths as well when it came to also drug-free communities, talking with the children
That's
to try
correct.
to get them to advocate to stay drug-free. And so I think we've seen each other a lot, and we've done a lot of work together. So grateful to have you here as well. Thank you so much. And then our next guest, she is family. She is amazing. She is so much. I can't necessarily put what she does in words because she does almost everything, and she still takes the time out to engage in conversation with us tonight. I'm so excited to welcome Dr. Constance Hendricks. Welcome.
Well, hello and good evening. I have a lot of friends on here. Looks like homecoming. You have my personal physician, Dr. Dede, and Dr. O. We have met in passing, have not had an opportunity to meet, but my pastor, Oh yeah. Now Reverend Noble will be upset about that, but Pastor Meadows, he and I have a lot of connection. His love connection I had a little hand in that, and I didn't know it, but I'm just so happy to be here. I am a registered nurse, retired 47 years as a community health nurse, educator, administrator, former dean at several HBCUs, Hampton, Tuskegee, and Concordia. And I am here to lend whatever expertise I have. And Dr. Dede will ask me, have I been walking? No, no. So I'm still guilty of not doing what she tells me to do. I fight just like most patients. And so I'm non-compliant with that. But I am so thrilled to be here. Look forward to the conversation.
Listen, I appreciate you. It's like, you know all the answers sometimes before I might even have the chance to ask. And so I appreciate you so much for taking the time to be here, even though I know you call yourself retired, but you're still active out in the community and still doing stuff. And so I thank you. And last, but I'm definitely certainly not least, so excited to have this next gentleman bring him on the table. He is not only he is a friend in every sense of the word, a friend to me as well as a friend through this illustrious fraternity. And he's doing some amazing work in athletics with our scholars and with our children in our communities as well. And so I'm excited to welcome our chapter Basilisk and the leader and the person who also allowed me to make all of this happen, Coach Calvin Marshall, Root to the Bros. How you doing, Doc?
What's going on, Q? How y'all doing? How y'all doing? Thank you all for being here today. I just had a vision of wanting to do something for our community, and he always makes it happen. You know, whatever vision I have, he gets it done for me. But I sincerely appreciate you all being here. My name is Calvin Marshall. I am the Assistant Athletic Director of Selma City Schools. I am a history teacher at R.B. Hudson STEAM Academy, which is also the middle school here. And I am the chapter Basilisk, as he just stated. And this is our achievement week. And we just want to be able to give back to our community somehow, some way to better our community, because some people still don't understand about healthcare. You know, as much as we think adults know, sometimes we have to educate them as well. And I think this is a grand opportunity to do so. And I thank you all for being here.
Listen, thank you so much for taking the time to be here, not only from the lens of Omega, but also from the lens of your professional side as well. And so we ask those that's tuning in, feel free to take a second, share this live. This is going to be some good conversations, some good information. Now, one of the things that I'm pretty sure a lot of people are asking is that the fact that we're talking about healthcare, but yet there are so many individuals on this panel who are not necessarily in healthcare. So what does this have to do with them, when the fact of the matter is this pandemic has essentially changed the outlook of everything of what we do, who we are essentially, and also as far as how we do things. And I think it's very important, highly important for us to point that out. And so, Dr. O, I'll start with you, and I'll wait. I know Dr. Baker's having some connectivity issues, and so when she comes back, I do want to get her take on this as well. I think that's her. I think she's back already. So I want to get you guys' thoughts. You know, a year ago, and we talked about this. You and Dr. Baker were both guests on a panel that I moderated with Mayor Perkins, where we talked about the state of COVID and really trying to understand the importance of wearing masks and social distancing. Now, here we are a year later, and we are sort of in almost like a new reality. Almost, you know, you're practicing, you're doing different things, but it's almost like it's something new for you. Can you sort of just talk about that experience from a healthcare professional, what that was like before COVID hit, and how that has sort of changed the way that you're doing things now as a physician?
COVID kind of brought to light a lot of things that we did not prioritize. You know, we all knew we're supposed to take care of our health, you know, eat right, exercise, drink water, and all those things. And we all just kind of got by without doing those things. But when COVID hit, it brought to realization the need to prioritize one's overall health and not just staying safe and wearing your mask. Everyone suddenly became more aware or in tune with their health, especially when the word boosting and maintaining your immune system became more like the reality on ground, and people realized that you stood a better chance of fighting the virus, not getting sick from it if you have an overall good immune system, which is a reflection of saying if you are in good health, good overall health. And that helps shed light on all the things that otherwise compromise our health. And this brought to light a lot of the chronic conditions that people had not taken seriously before then. So COVID has its what I call the good, the bad, the ugly side. And my experience back then, when it first started, we didn't know what it was. We were just trying to every week there was a new recommendation. Try this meds, try that, use this vitamin, don't use that vitamin, use this antibiotic, use this steroids. And it was like a gamble. And then we lost a lot of people in that initial phase, from February all the way to like July-ish. And then when different studies started coming through, like, okay, try this. If you use steroids with some antibiotics and this antiviral, it would help. And then we started to try it. The mortality started to dwindle. But ultimately, even with the best of medicine, we still could not predict who was going to make it, who was going to come out alive, because we had young people, 20s, 30s, dying with no health issues. And we have old people, 90 something, walking out of there alive. So it was hard to predict who was going to make it or not. Yeah. And so as the pandemic kind of went on and the vaccine came up, that gave us a new hope that, okay, we might not understand this disease or how to treat it, but at least we can prevent it. At least we have a fighting chance with it, even if we do get it, which is what the vaccine promises. Not that you ain't gonna get it, but at least you won't die from it. And if you get it, you won't be that sick from it. And so all of this just brought to light of, okay, we need to boost our own immune system, because even if you do get the vaccine, it says, okay, you won't fall sick and you won't die from it. But we have those breakthrough cases that despite that still fall sick. Again, emphasis on your underlying overall health. And I think that is the good part of the COVID, is that it's helped us focus on our health as a whole, what it means to live healthy, not just protecting you against the virus, but overall, what are the other aspects of your health that you haven't paid attention to? What are those risks, the chronic conditions, the hypertension, the diabetes, the obesity, the smoking, the drinking, the, couch potatoes, and the not eating water, not drinking water, and eating a lot of fried foods and all of that, all those things that we otherwise had known but didn't take it serious. The COVID made us take it serious. And I think that is one plus side of how the overall pandemic has helped us view our health in a different way.
Thank you so much for providing providing that vantage point and that viewpoint. Lots of times people don't necessarily know or really realize what healthcare professionals really deal with. Dr. Baker, I know you work with UAB Family Medicine, and me being the communications director at Vaughn, I think we both sort of had to deal with the same thing when we sort of had to shut down to stop visitors from coming in at one point, because things had just gotten a little bit crazy. And just so now, you're taking appointments, you're having to travel for clinicals, things of that nature, all still while not trying to catch COVID. Can you talk about that reality from your perspective and what that has been like?
Hey, you guys, I hope you can hear me. I'm so sorry. I was driving, the reception got a little bad. So hopefully I'm not choppy.
You're good.
Okay. So overall, I think it was just I think in the beginning of COVID, we were all a little bit shell shocked. And Dr. O is like my sister from another mister, so she may have repeated it a little bit of what I'm saying. I'm sorry, I missed a little bit of it. But it was like a shell shock. When we first got in COVID, we really didn't know what to expect and how to protect ourselves, how to protect our families. So, of course, initially, everything came to abrupt stop and you didn't go out, you wasn't buying groceries. We fight over, necessities. So those situations I think was scary not only for myself and team members, but also for the community. But now as we transition to the other side, post vaccinations, kind of understand what we need to do in order to protect ourselves, realizing what we need to do in hospitals in order to better manage and serve our patients, to support their systems as they deal with COVID. Because everybody knows that it's not a treatment; we just help support your immune system as you fight COVID. So a lot of pre-education is the most important thing about COVID. So teaching people how to be healthy before the exposure actually knocks on their front door. Now, for me, as far as just transitioning into seeing patients and kind of maneuvering to other clinical rotations, I feel like now, we have become a little bit more comfortable with that interaction and close interaction. One, because of the vaccinations, and probably two, because we know a little bit more about the disease and the education about it. We know how to protect ourselves, knowing that mask and hand washing is particularly an important tool for all of us to use. So knowing that, I feel like
Mm-mm.
I'm sorry, I'm just talking away. Didn't realize I was muted. I think we just lost her, but I'm sure she'll come back. For those that's tuning in and don't know, Dr. Baker is actually traveling on assignment right now that just came tonight. And so, even in the pandemic, she's still working hard and she's still doing that. I want her to finish her statement, but while we're waiting for her to get together, I want to move on to Pastor Meadows. Um, you all have had a very particular situation with your churches. You guys have been out of service. Then some pastors started coming back into the service. But then, of course, when we had that big surge over the summer, pastors took their churches back, took their members out of the sanctuary again. And so, as we sort of are moving back into this new reality of worshiping into the worship services, I know our church sanctuary is taped up with barriers of you can't sit here, you can't sit there. And so, from your perspective, how has that necessarily impacted your church members, knowing that you all can't necessarily fellowship together? Are we seeing the last of these 100-piece mass choirs, things of that nature? And how did that shine a light on the importance of healthcare within the church period?
Well, first off, I'll say that navigating this season of uncertainty and the challenges of this pandemic has been particularly a challenge uh, for myself, because the Sunday that churches closed was the Sunday I was elected about 20 months ago to be pastor of Hutchinson.
Wow.
And so I will never forget getting the call that I had been elected, and then saying, now, what are we going to do? Uh, so I was elected that Sunday. Monday, in a meeting, we're trying to really redefine what is going to be the delivery of worship, and overnight set infrastructure for virtual worship, and not just worship, but evangelism and discipleship and complete operation, when most churches did not appreciate that reality or make the investment prior to the pandemic. But what I can say is that it has been a moment that has taken us back to the foundation of our faith. And though our faith has been tested, it has really taken us down to the basics. We don't have extra services. We don't have extra all the other things that we were so accustomed to. But faith, I believe, has returned to the home. The sanctity and holiness of the home, the presence of God in one's home, and not just home, but in their heart, beyond a building, or shall I say without a building, has been one of the benefits of this pandemic, without all of the extra stuff. And so, of course, we've seen our faith be framed, and it's still being framed. The church is being framed and reframed. And while there are some churches that are in pause, waiting on this thing to be over and to go back to that old normal, we are fortunate to be able to see an ushering in of a new normal, in particular of the true furtherance of our faith. And so several things, our church has become heavy since we can't get within the walls. We've found ministry beyond the walls, and the significance of that, whether through monthly food giveaways, vaccination clinics, creatively reaching out to our members, maximizing the power of technology, creating intergenerational collaboration in terms of getting through these challenges. And so while it has, there have been unfortunate parts, losing members you really never got a chance to meet, burying people at an extremely high level, and the emotional pressure of just running an organization in the midst of all of these challenges, it has been a blessing because the faith community has had a unique opportunity, whether they've taken it or not, to return to what our faith is truly all about.
That's good. That's good, Doc. That's real good. And just being someone who has been a part of the church transition from when they first in the beginning of the pandemic, because I was the person who was running the live stream all the way to where we are now. I 100% can see that, and how we've had to redefine what worship looks like. And I think it also causes us to be more cognizant of how we live and what we do, so that we can be able to sort of be able to live to tell the story to our children, of what we lived through. Doctor, I see Dr. Baker is back with us. I want to give you a chance before I move on to Brother Marshall for you to finish your point, because you were talking about something really big, and I want you to get a chance to finish that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you guys pulled over. Help. But I just was saying that I'm still connecting with my patients in a very unique way. I know we're still keeping that distance, but still letting them know that we're still care, we're still tangible, providing a service where they know that they don't have to sit at home and be fearful to come to the clinic and come and see their physicians. Is basically what I was establishing that rapport back, because a lot of them do sit home in fear that it's more stressful to come and see the doctor than it is to just stay home and wait it out. So just establishing that rapport and relationship is basically the primary thing I think that we're dealing with mostly right now, is to encourage people to do start following up and getting those necessary testing and things like that that's been put off for almost a year and a half now.
So a heightened sense of awareness. Certainly, I agree with that 100%. Definitely can. I definitely see that, and thank you for providing that viewpoint as well. Now, Brother Marshall, I want to move to you now. You all have a very interesting situation as well, because you all are essentially catching up after an entire year to 2 years of either no sports, or some sports were modified almost. And so, can you sort of just talk about what that change was like? Because the sports that were modified, you had students and parents that were still catching COVID in the middle of that, and I know that had to have been a risk as well. And so, can you just talk about what that was like and what that is like now that you all are sort of kind of back to full capacity almost?
Basically just excuse me, just having a plan in place. I think from everything that everyone else has been talking about is just having a plan in place. The most important thing was just making sure that children were going to be safe, doing COVID tests every week for football or before the basketball games, no fans in the stadiums, but we provided the live stream. The live streams kind of made it more sensible, especially if you're getting to watch your kid. You can't physically be there, but giving people the opportunity to just have that experience. And, you know, having 3 buses, you know, back in the day, you put everybody on one bus. You know, now you can only have maybe 12 to 13 kids on the bus. So if you have a 30 to 40 team roster, player roster, now your buses has enlarged. You can only put so many on there, even with coaches and trainers. So you have all of these buses, you have masks on, you have so many things you have to have in place in order for it to be successful. And even within then, people's seasons were getting shut down. People were 7-0. And game number 8, the whole team has COVID. Your season is over. If one person caught it, then it was pretty much over because you're congregating. You're at practice, you're in the locker room, all of the above, you know. So the only thing that was separate was you took your classes on the Google Classroom or on Zoom or on Schoology, but you kind of interacted every day when you had to go to practice. So it just became scary at some point because you didn't know whether you should end it on your own, you know, or you should keep it, because athletics is a major part of children's life. You know, some people need it. That's all they have. So you want to protect them, but you also have to realize that if we don't have athletics and we're sending them home, and the home isn't the most important factor, it may not be safe there either. So we had to make decisions daily that would benefit everyone. Because even where we live now, some children are homeless. Like some of our players and students are homeless. They're living with grandmother, and you know, when you don't live with your primary guardian, you're considered homeless. Because at any time, you're 9, 10 years old. Anything can happen to a guardian. Anything. So we had to make decisions that benefited everyone somehow, some way. We did end up having seasons. The middle school didn't have a season. So they didn't play any sports. So, but they did, the 8th graders did get to play along with the high school football team. But even within then, it was like you can't force them on the field because their body hasn't adjusted to that type of contact and mentality of the game. But we just couldn't leave them out. But overall, I truly feel that taking COVID tests every week, coaches, players, wiping down facility, you know, so many people had to learn how to wipe down. You know, you would be surprised how we think we know everything to do properly, but we didn't. Even during this pandemic, when it came to washing uniforms and cleaning shoulder pads and helmets and basketballs, I even learned something. You know, you have to truly wipe this stuff down. You have to sincerely, you had to have a passion for it, because you had to have a passion for it because it became irritable. You're like, I got to do this every day. You know, this job is not for the weak. Coaching and being an athletic director was definitely not for the weak during the pandemic. And I'm truly thankful that I got to be a part of it and help administer a plan that benefited Selma City schools. And we're still doing those things now. You know, even though it's post, it's still around. You know, we can't negate that something can happen to anyone at any time. We even lost one of our PE teachers this year, just out of the blue, just out of nowhere. You know, everybody's fine. We haven't had any teachers, not too many kids, you know, get that severe, and then boom, we lose a teacher. It definitely put everybody back on their P's and Q's, because even then, it was still post. You know, the vaccine was out, the numbers were going down, and it's there. So even though, you know, we're not health workers, we have to always have a plan in place to protect these players, these students, and even ourselves. And then the most important factor is you have to come back home to your own kids after being around so many other kids that you don't know that their parents may not take it as serious as you do. But your job is to educate and make sure that they are ready to be successful for the next grade level. So it's scary, but it definitely has brought the faith factor back. Like Pastor said, like the faith factor is definitely back around, even in school, because you know they tell us to not talk. You know, we can't force God back into school, but We gonna pray in Coach Marshall class because we're gonna be covered. You know, I don't know about nobody else, but we're gonna do what we gotta do.
Listen, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for that viewpoint. And I have to say, just I remember just listening to all of you talk about what you had dealt with, the decisions that you had to make. It brought me back to this time last year in when the pastors had to make a lot of difficult decisions when it came to burying their members. You know, I'm thinking about the physicians and the risks that you all were going through during that time, and in school having to uh, you know try to not necessarily put the kids at risk, but you're playing contact sports and you're
Mhm.
also doing the things that to try to keep the kids being kids, because this was really such a crisis at that point. My pastor, he's starting to call this an endemic because it doesn't seem like that COVID is going to
It's not
leave
going anywhere.
right anytime soon. Which brings me to Dr. Hendricks. I wanted to get your viewpoint because you've got wisdom on your side with all of this. Although this is new, you've worked in healthcare, you've worked in higher ed, and I know this is new territory for you, but have you ever just dealt with anything of this magnitude? And just I would love to know sort of your thoughts with this, just being a healthcare professional over the years and some of the things that you've seen to what we're dealing with now.
Well, thank you, Mr. Petway. When you talk about wisdom, you mean I'm old, and that's okay.
Oh no, never.
I love
Don't do me like that. Now wait a minute.
when you think about the alternative of aging. I take the aging any day. Now, what I want to say is, while this particular pandemic was new by name and it is presenting symptoms, diseases and viruses have been around. And so what we had to do was draw from what we knew and what worked with some of the other virus infections and put it to practice as we struggled through this until the vaccines and what have you could be approved. Now, we know that health is a holistic concept. It's real. It's mind, body, and spirit. We need all of those things. And we've heard my pastor there, Pastor Meadows, talk about that spirit. And if you know that's strong. We know the physical medicine is there, and we need those physicians. We need them to keep those cellular things going, but we need that spiritual piece going. We need that activity of the body going, and that's where the coach came. And so while I was in I guess I was in isolation, or I was somewhere sitting here, I chose to be the advocate, the health advocate, the health navigator, to listen to what the science and the research was presenting, and then to translate that and provide health information. So for Pastor Meadows Church and 45 other churches, Ebenezer and many of the others, I kept pulling that information together and breaking it down and pushing it out there for information so people could get it. And while we weren't congregating, I left it up to you to say, okay, but here it is. Push it out to your people any way you can. I also want to share with you that I took the opportunity to expand myself as well and become a mental health first aid trainer. So, because listen, changing our social setting impeded all of we're social beings. And when we can't, y'all know I love, well, maybe you don't know, but I love to sing. And I miss the 100 voice choirs. Yes, I do. But am I ready to go back into that, Brother Collins? I don't know. But I'm a choir girl. I grew up, on the conventions and going over there, and we be sweating and singing and all piled up together. But I don't know that we will get to that in a while. So I see myself as the health navigator and advocate. And as I watched, because I was here and I could take that time to observe what was happening across the world, I could reflect on what I saw in my many trips to Africa and how they navigated things in the countries that we call lesser developed countries, but they were surviving. And so I pulled from that and I tried to share that information and push it out. I had the opportunity to work with a multidisciplinary community group in Macon County, where we brought the funeral directors and the educators and all of the business folks together. And listen, everybody now needs some mental health first aid trainers in their facility because people been cooped up. That's why we see them act crazy on the planes, because they haven't been around people. And so even I experienced that anxiety when I find myself, Dr. Baker, having to go out in a big group. I have to talk myself through that group and say, okay, you double mask, you done what you're supposed to do, it's going to be all right. And then when you come in, you get out of those clothes and you do all the things that we want to do. But I took this time to pull from that wisdom that you gave me in this gray hair and experience to take all of the research and then to break it down in that everyday language and push it back out there so people could have an opportunity to use it. Now, if you use it, great. If you choose not to, just like Dr. Dede on me about that walking. And I go, yes, ma'am, I know it. Yeah, I know. She said, but there are videos and yeah, I know it. And I go, okay, I'm going to get around. I'm still going to get around to it. That's on my get around to, Dr. Baker. But health, anytime you put two people together, you have the potential for a health issue. And when we put 96,000 together, or 100-some thousand that's going to be in the Alabama Stadium or the Auburn Stadium, this weekend, wherever they are, they're going to be in South Carolina. And all these folks breathing, So that's my job, is to take the research, take the health information, translate it, make it simple, put it out there for the other people.
Thank you so much for that. And that was something that I think it's good to remind people about, that although this COVID is new, we've seen infectious diseases before. We've seen situations such as this before. And so I think this also allows the scientists, the doctors, the health experts to pull from that knowledge to sort of adjust to some of the things where we are. Now, we've heard so many different viewpoints from all of you. And so my next question I want to really get into, which sort of could take us out because I don't believe in these long events, is more so, what specifically does a new normal look like? Now, we've talked about the changes, what has happened. And so what I would love to know is, what does a new normal look like in your line of work and in what you do? Dr. Baker, for the sake of where you are, because I need you on the road safe, I'm going to actually start with you.
Um, yeah, new normal. That's a very interesting question. Because you desire, right, to go back to what it was, what your normal was, because that's your normal vibe, your normal vibe. If you like to hug and talk close to people and hang out and be at other folks' house, I'm from New Orleans, like, everybody be at everybody's house and you don't even knock, you just walk in. You do that right now, and you might get uppercut. You know what I mean? So that's your normal. Is if your normal is to be with people. I just think that we have to take into consideration how masks has helped us in general. So like during flu season, we haven't, I don't know about Dr. O, but I haven't seen a whole lot of flu. RSV and things like that the kids were, really, really sick with, there's not a ton of it. So the blessings of like us protecting ourselves from other people, I get it. It's definitely keeping our COVID numbers at bay, and also other numbers, that we're so, used to seeing and treating this time of year. The problem with, I think, the becoming the new normal is exactly what Dr. Hendricks talking about, that fear, you know, um, and then also um, not knowing what's on the other side. If you relax on the precautions, how do you expose other people and also yourself and family and so forth and so on. So getting to that happy medium of, always being masked, always cautions to, how do you dial back into that new normal? I think for me it looks like, you know, it looks like vaccinations and then doing what we need to do to continue to study and provide you guys with the knowledge from science, but also with just faith and hope that it may not always be this way, because I'm learning every day, despite COVID, people are dying frequently and more often from other situations. And I do think it has a lot to do with mental health. But there's more shotgun, there's more GSWs, like wounded victims from gun wounds and on domestic violence that we're seeing. I mean, these things are at a high rise. So take the time to love your family. Do what you need to do. We do need to be protected, but definitely get your time in. Get your love in. Get your support in. Do what you need to do now, because tomorrow is not promised for each and every one of us. And it's that knowing of when you need to be, and then when you need to be loving. You know what I mean? It's that new normal.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, there it goes. Um, but I do agree with her. I think just from a healthcare perspective, Doctor O, I'm going to let you jump in really quick too. I think it means so much that I think it allows you to pay attention to some of the things that we weren't really paying attention to before. And I think a lot of things that we took for granted. So, Doctor O, I want to jump that over to you and let you jump in here as well.
The new normal for me is redefined in two words: support and hope. Support because we now have to come to terms with the side effect and the reality of COVID. What I mean by side effect is COVID went through different phases. There was a time that was a stigma of COVID. You don't want to be labeled as the positive one. And once you're positive, everybody like, she got the COVID. And then we evolved through the stigma of not wanting to be known as positive, and we all kind of incorporated this survivor mentality, this survivor, I survived the COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So the new normal now is offering support to each other, whether one's positive, not positive, never positive, could be positive, or those that are having that post-COVID syndrome, because a lot of people are now having the sequelae of being exposed to the virus at one point or the other. That's another medical reality altogether, where some symptoms now are actually side effects of having catching the virus or having caught the virus in the past. So the new normal for me, I think, is developing that support system that helps you live through it, whether or not as a victim or a survivor, or even just as a member of the community. We have to offer that support to each other and hold on to the hope that we're going to get through this. Support is going to be in form of mental health, spiritual support, and even physical. And that support also has to come in form of being intentional about our overall well-being. I said the COVID shed light on it, but it's one thing to know and it's another thing to do something about it. So now the new normal is we being intentional about our health. All these things I am eating, I have to be intentional about taking my medications, about the diet. I need to say no to this or reduce the frequency of eating some things. I need to get physically active, whether it's cold, it's hot, whether it's jumping Zumba in front of my TV or going to the gym or participating in sports. You have to be intentional about your health, because healthcare can no longer, or your own personal health can no longer be passive. It can't be, that's the food around, I'm gonna just eat it. It has to be intentional. And you have to no longer just, I know I have blood pressure, but I'm not gonna take my meds. I think I'm okay. It's no longer I think, I know, I'm hoping. It is now, being intentional. And once that intention is established, embracing support. Another good thing about COVID is because there's been a lot of funds and grants poured into outreach awareness programs relating to COVID. So resources are out there in form of, it could be grants or just having just that neighborly kindness to each other and saying, if you need help, you need food, you need money, support, we have each other, we need each other at this time. So the new normal is actually us depending on each other to get through, hold each other accountable, and being intentional about our health.
Agreed. That intentionality, I believe, takes that goes a long way with how we be able to navigate through these spaces. And so that brings me to you, Brother Marshall, from your standpoint regarding education, not just that, but also athletics, but students. What does that look like moving forward, especially navigating through this new reality we're in now?
That new reality just looks like it does now. Just making sure we have protocol and making sure that protocols are being followed. Doing the necessary things to make sure kids are safe. Like even in the school, we all don't eat in the cafeteria. We're separate. We stay in our domains. We have face shields. We have air filters. We have clean air circulating throughout our schools. If you have a headache, if you have any type of symptom of anything, you have to go home, even if you don't have COVID. You can't make people feel unsafe. If I get a headache, I'll be like, hey, look, I'm feeling a little ill. I don't know what it is. And seriously, like you can't take the things that we used to take things like we used to take a headache light. Like, oh, you got a headache, you need to eat or you need to get some rest. Now a headache can be, oh, that's a symptom of COVID. So, you have to be mindful, excuse me, of everything, making sure that you're not being selfish of staying at work or you just want to be around your friends. And that's my go-to word for this pandemic. Stop being selfish. Yes, you want to see grandmama or you want grandmama to come to your game or you want family to come support you, but you can't be selfish enough to know that their immune system may not be as strong as yours right now. So just not being selfish and being proactive. Walking, Dr. Hendricks.
Yep.
Walking. Like even for me, when I'm at basketball practice, I run a few laps with my players. Just I ain't finna run all 10, but I'm gonna get me a few in. These knees ain't what they used to be, so I'm gonna get a few of them in, and then I'm gonna get up out of there. But just staying active, not being selfish and staying active would be my key points. Being able to know that love doesn't have to be present. You can love through your phone, you can love through text message, you can love through Zoom. I love y'all right now. That I ain't got to be around y'all enough. You know what I'm saying? So just not being selfish and like you got to touch on people. I tell my students every day, I know you miss them. Hey, a nice little pound to work. Boom. Hey, good to see you. But hey, it's still a change. We're still working on it. Hey, as we stay in the workforce, it's a working document. It doesn't end. We gonna keep adding as the months go by with it. It's a working document.
Living.
That's right. That's right. Dr. Hendricks, I know you gave us some powerful stuff. And you honestly sort of inspired this conversation with the new normal. But I do want to just get your input with this as well. If you just had even just a few seconds of anything to add, as far as for someone who has essentially, you've dealt with so much before, and there's so much for you to still go to see. What does that new normal look like for you?
We're going to take and be intentional. I take intentional to use our technology, your skills, to help us embrace the new normal. We have been able to reach and do so much more with so many more people using technology. I can listen to Pastor Meadows without having to drive over there, and he'd be putting out some powerful words. But it's the competition between Perkins and him on Sunday. I'll be like, okay, and then I got that Sarah, that's a pastor down in Dothan. I'm trying to check on her. and listen to Noble over the other side. So technology, we are going to have to learn to use technology, rethink, be intentional about when we get together, how much we get together, and what we should do while we are together. Limit that unmasked conversation, because remember, it's in the air. The virus is in the air we breathe. And so get comfortable with the mask. If we have to resort to cute masks, get color masks, a different one every day or something. But we're not through with the mask yet. So encourage people to hang in there. And of course, for those who still haven't gotten their initial vaccinations and the rest of them who need to be boosted up, get boosted up. We've been sticking our babies with vaccines when they 6 weeks old. Now all of a sudden everybody got a problem. They were getting vaccines before they knew they had vaccines. So I failed to understand. But we're going to keep helping them as an advocate and a translator of the science to help them understand what is good and hope that they will make informed choices.
And just know that work does not go unnoticed. And so definitely thank you for that. Pastor Meadows, I was intentional on allowing you to round this out and this conversation out, because not only do I want you to sort of just kind of get into not necessarily what that looks like, but as far as going forward, is there sort of I don't know. Is there light at the end of all of this? Because I know we've talked about some dark stuff and some changes and things of that nature, and just sort of kind of round us out with this, if you will.
Well, first, Collins, I just want to thank you for making space and allowing for this conversation to take place. I do want to share, as everyone has talked about what their new normal looks like, for, churches and communities of faith. I think that a new normal for us um, involves a synthesis or blending of our delivery of worship. We moved from heavy on in person before pandemic to virtual through the pandemic, and so now we'll see more of a hybrid church, a combination of both. And I think it's going to give way to a new normal of simplicity. We have made not only church, but so many other things more complicated than what they should have been. And so we're back to basics and to the foundation, as I said a little earlier, of what faith is really all about, and how we exercise and apply that faith in our everyday walking and living. And I think it all comes down to this idea of service beyond the service, and churches truly supporting the entire well-being of its members, but also the communities of which it is in. And so, if you've gone throughout this entire pandemic and your community hasn't heard from you, you haven't been visible, then what that is basically saying is that your community can do without you. And when things move back to some semblance of normal, you're going to see that reflected in involvement in your church. And so the new normal that I believe is really the church arising again to address those food insecurities, to prioritize health, valuing the voices of health professionals. There is not a fight between faith and science, but they work together. And that through medicine, God is doing his greatest miracles in this day, supporting the mental well-being not only of members and communities, but also pastors having to prioritize balance in life. That's something that I've had to challenge myself in promoting financial well-being and relational well-being. But even more, as this pandemic was taking place, we had all of these systemic injustices that were coming to the surface.
Yeah.
And so now people are going to look for the church to be that voice in the wilderness. And I think even more, as we talk about where do we go from here, we're going to have to do better at supporting each other. I think that is so very important. Churches supporting and partnering with each other right now. We're doing vaccination initiatives with groups of churches in various cities because we have to support each other. But then the church putting value again on the healthcare industry, supporting our teachers and the education of our children, of our college students, working with civic organizations. That's why I'm so excited about what the Omegas are doing and other fraternities and sororities and other service-oriented organizations, because going forward, this is the moment where we have finally understood, and what we should understand, that we are better together and that all we have is each other.
That's right.
And so what I pray is that we would see the importance of partnering, first of all, with God through faith and working together in that beloved community, and understanding that we can get through this. This isn't the first time we've been through such a challenge. And the same God that brought us through before, he's able to bring us through again. And our collective faith and support of each other has brought us through, especially people of color, so many difficult seasons. And that's what it's going to take to bring us through now.
Mm-hmm.
You really gave a word. I just want you to know that you really gave a word.
I can't
I was doing the amen. I was trying to be quiet.
Listen, and I think after that, there really isn't anything else that needs to be said with that point. I think I wanted that to happen. I'm glad you said that, because I wanted this to end on an encouraging note. We have seen some of the worst days, and we might very well still go through some challenging moments with this pandemic, but I do believe that we can get through this. And I think the one thing I want to point out that you said that all of you really actually talked about was having a plan, being intentional, understanding the needs, and doing it together as well. And so that's the biggest thing I think that we are grateful for. One of the things that we at Omega Psi Phi that we pride ourselves on is working together with the community, as well as to provide for resources, access, as well as educating our community advocates as well. And so with that, I do want to thank all of you for taking the time out to be a part of this conversation today. Thank you so much, Dr. Baker. Thank you so much, Dr. O, Pastor Meadows, Brother Marshall, Dr. Hendricks. Thank all of you so much for taking the time out to chat with us on today. We just want to just remind you all that this conversation is going to be up on our Facebook page. It's also available on our YouTube channel. You can literally just type in Omega Chi, OMEGACHIE 1957, and then literally you will find this post, unless we post something else tomorrow, but you'll find this post on these social media platforms, which of course is a part of our achievement week that we have been working through in the communities as well. And so thank you all for the support. Selma and Dallas County, thank you all for your support of the Omega Chi chapter and the work that we do. We support you because you all continue to support us, and we will continue to do what we can in the communities as well. Thank you all once again for tuning in. And with that, we're saying good night.
Bye-bye.